Governor Mike Huckabee, one of our most frequent and favorite guests this morning. Run by the news with him. Good morning, Governor.
Good morning, Governor.
Good morning. Great to be with you guys on a Labor Day weekend.
So as many are saying that Donald Trump appears to be acting more and more presidential, others who are critical of Hillary Clinton say she's acting like she's in the witness protection program. She hasn't done a press conference in more than 270 days. I want you to take a listen to this soundbite of Brian Fallon saying, oh, she'll do a press conference once she's president.
I think I could safely commit that as President Hillary Clinton would hold press conferences, but the frequency of them is something that I think is something that would just play out as time went on. I think that in general she would continue to take questions in a variety of formats, and I know that there's been an intense focus lately on press conferences. The reality is, in the course of this campaign, she's answered questions in a variety of formats.
Is that going to keep being effective for her or not?
Look, I think she's making Howard Hughes look like a doggone publicity hound. It's unbelievable that Hillary Clinton is running for the most visible job in the world, and yet she's invisible. I mean, I think she believes that the presidency is something like being the Wizard of Oz, and you get to live behind the curtain. Nobody ever sees you. They just hear from you through releases that you put out. This is unbelievable. And why anybody at this point believes that she's prepared, ready, and even capable of doing this job is beyond me. There's something incredible going on here.
But the strategy, I'm curious about the strategy, though, Governor. She's making hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars at these fundraisers that she's having. So she's meeting with all these rich celebrities. She's running ads in states like Arizona, so she's spending money hand over fist right now. She hates talking to the press. So maybe behind the scenes, this is a smart strategy for her.
Well, if it is, then it's the death of American politics as we know it, because it used to be that candidates went out and had to make their case. They had to answer questions. They had to be available. And frankly, they had to do some things that may have been a little demeaning to them, like go and slurp down a barbecue sandwich with little people, as Hillary probably calls them, and not just have the fancy hors d'oeuvres and finger foods with the billionaires behind gated communities. But the fact is, we need to know that our president understands who we are. With Hillary, the one thing you can be sure of, she hasn't a clue who we are as American people, because she's never with them. The only people she hangs out with are the uber rich, the people who live in a world unto themselves and really live in a la-la land. And if we want a president who's president of la-la land, Hillary's the girl. But I think that would be a disaster for this country.
Well, it turns out, Governor, that's not just speculation. That's not a partisan point you're making. It's factually true. This morning's New York Times has a long piece on exactly that. Here's a quote from it. Mrs. Clinton's aides have gone to great lengths to protect an image of her as down-to-earth and attuned to the challenges of what she likes to call the struggling and the striving. Yet some of the closest relationships she and her husband, former President Bill Clinton, have are with long-standing contributors. If she feels most at ease around millionaires within the gilded bubble, it is in part because some of them are her most intimate friends. And the proof, of course, is in the selfies with Justin Timberlake and Jimmy Buffett and Paul McCartney. But she has been fundraising nonstop. There's Justin Timberlake with the former Secretary of State. She's been fundraising nonstop. We actually have a list of the prices she's charging to interact with people. She's charging $2,700 for every question she received from kids that's under 16.
That
$10,000 for a family
Tucker,
photo.
one of the things, you know, I think one of the big questions, though, is not just what she's doing. Here's the bigger question. Why? Why is she so afraid to answer questions from anyone that hasn't been scripted, pre-approved, checked, double-checked, triple-checked, and threatened with a gun to their head if they go off script? I'll tell you why. Because she's afraid of having to face what she has done as Secretary of State, as relative to the Clinton Foundation. These are questions she cannot answer truthfully. And when she has gone out in public and answered, she's flat out lied, whether it's to Congress, whether it's to the press. So she can't afford to be out there talking, because everything she says is going to be revealed as being untrue. And that's a terrible place for someone to be if you want to be the leader of the free world, and especially if you want to be President of the United States, the person who's supposed to preside over free speech, over integrity, honesty, transparency. She just can't do it. She's not up to the job.
Governor, in the coming weeks, it's been reported that Hillary Clinton will have the press corps on board, Hill Force One, as they've been calling it. Is this going to make a difference at all?
No, because they're going to be in the cargo section. They're not going to get near Hillary Clinton. So what if they're on the plane? Have you ever been on one of those campaign planes?
Yeah, a lot.
The principal, the campaign, the candidates up front. And there is about, Secret Service and a whole bunch of other people that make darn sure you never go up there unless the candidate comes back and, says happy birthday to a reporter. And then, even then, in most cases, it's very scripted, it's very controlled. And as soon as the questions get tough, well, the pilot just turned on the turbulence light. We're going to have to go be seated now. I mean, come on. It's all show. And it's really, I think it's an embarrassment to the Democratic Party that they've nominated somebody that even they can't find.
If you've been to Detroit recently, you know that it was ground zero, of course, for the recession. If you drive down some of those streets, you'll see burned out houses, and you can buy a house for $500. That's no joke. Well, the Trump campaign is now slamming the Clinton plan because they want to bring refugees into Detroit, Syrian refugees, in order to get them some jobs. I want you to listen to Bill Clinton's sound on this and get you to respond. Listen.
Big loser in this over the long run is going to be Syria. This is an enormous opportunity for Americans. Detroit has 10,000 empty, structurally sound houses. 10,000. And a lot of jobs to be had repairing those houses.
So come in there, Governor, these burned out hovels, and get the Syrian refugees to rebuild them. What do you think of that?
I think he inhaled. I really do. I think he did inhale, maybe not in college, but he's doing it now. This has got to be one of the most outrageous ideas. Here's why. We've got 93 million Americans who aren't in the workforce, the highest number in several generations. We have Americans who need jobs, who need places to stay, who need housing. If we're going to just say, let's just take Detroit and fill it up with people, why not fill it up with some people who are Americans and put them to work? And what a shame. Detroit, one of the great cities of the world. And if it hadn't been for Detroit, we wouldn't probably be here today, because it was the arsenal of democracy in World War II that frankly saved America's rear end. And, I think that there's a certain sense of, gosh, we ought to do everything we can to make sure that we don't forget what Detroit did for America.
But isn't this our whole immigration policy,
It's not to bring in
though?
Syrian refugees.
I mean, the elites look at America, they're like a bunch of losers who complain too much. Let's just bring in foreigners who work harder for less and never complain. It's about replacing Americans whom the elites think are not worth trying with anymore.
And Tucker, it doesn't bother them because they're going to be surrounded by armed guards, the very kind of arming that they don't want the regular citizens to have. They're not going to rub shoulders with people in these inner cities, not unless it's carefully controlled and scripted. So, it's kind of like Alfred E. Newman from Mad Magazine. What, me worry? No, they don't have to. But the rest of us do have to worry. And that's why sometimes these plans, they sound like they come out of an ivory tower think tank with a bunch of people who sat around from some cocktail party in Georgetown imagining themselves to be brilliant when they don't have a clue about how most of America actually lives day to day.
That's for sure.
Governor Mike Huckabee, great to have you on the show.
Thanks, Governor. Enjoy your holiday weekend.
Great to be with you guys. Thank you.